Welcome back to the Creative Creatures podcast. I'm joined today with someone who I consider an icon, not only for myself, but for an entire generation that grew up with the movie American Pie and Rookie of the Year. And that is Thomas Nicholas, who plays the part of Kevin Myers in American Pie and the entire American Pie franchise. Welcome, mate. How are you?
I'm good. And also, I think my character's name in Rookie of the Year is pronounced Henry, row, when, gar, ner.
That was not even any effects going on there, I swear. That is impressive. So you played Kevin Myers in American Pie, the original and the entire original franchise.
The only good ones, yes. The only good American Pies.
So it's very exciting to have you here. I feel like you have been in the media industry for years. You would have seen so much change in the way that things are promoted and marketed. So I just think I'm excited about it and keen to get into it. You've been touring the country, doing meet and greets, showing screenings of the movie, and also playing in your band.
Yes, this is the American Pie Emo Night Tour, right. And it has all those things. It has screenings, live shows, and DJ sets. Sometimes we do all three in the same night, and sometimes we just do one.
That sounds like quite a bit of fun, to be fair.
Yeah, well, it's I'm just stoked that this is my first official tour in Australia. So,
how's it been treating you so far?
Amazing. I think I don't want to speak too soon, but I think I'll be coming back in July, October, and December.
Really?
Of this year.
It's been treating you that well then?
Yeah, I think so.
And the Aussies compared to Americans, is there a big difference? How do you find us?
I try not to compare people to people. Whoever comes out to the show is my favorite people.
Well, you've provided us with years of entertainment, so hopefully our country can return the favor and be interesting and entertaining for you.
Oh, absolutely. As we talked about, as you know, I have Australian roots, so there's my family. It's a bit more of than just being here for the first time. I came to visit them when I was 10 years old in 1990 because I'm old as dirt. They live in Western Australia in Fremantle. And also, I have another crazy connection. If you've been seeing any of the press stuff, they finally have written about it. My great-great-grandfather was Ned Kelly's uncle.
Wow.
So this is my first time to Melbourne. So while I'm here in Melbourne, I'm going to go and see Ned Kelly's armor at the library for sure.
That's Australian royalty right there.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there's a few characters around. You might run into them. And we tend to, I don't know if you've noticed, I already told you about the coffee obsession we have here in Melbourne.
See, I think I might just be Australian then because I have a coffee obsession myself.
You'll fit in well then. The other thing we're known for doing is putting an O on every single thing. So if there's a service station, that becomes a servo. I was thinking instead of being Thomas in Nicholas over here, I think you'd be labeled Tomo or Nico or maybe Kevo or something.
I've been hearing that.
Well, look, there's a lot of experience that you have in the industry. I kind of want to just jump into what I find really exciting, which is one of my favorite movies, American Pie. How did you land the role? How did it come about landing such a life-changing role of Kevin Myers? You were a bit of a child prodigy and already starring in Rookie of the Year, but how did that role come about?
At the time that I was doing that, which is vastly different from now, there was a lot of auditions throughout the course of the year. So from 1986 until about, 2002, it was the idea of going on 100 to 200 auditions every year just to land one role.
Well, to me, that shows that you're perfect for the role then. It's not like something that's given to you because you know a connection or something. If you're going to all these different auditions and then you just suit that role so perfectly that they...
Well, but it goes to show, and when I tell you the story of how it all came about, you're going to see even more that when something's meant for you, it's meant for you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got sent the script, which wasn't an offer. It just was, here, read this script. If you respond to the material, we can set up an audition for you.
I heard that it was originally labeled a production that will fool the studios to spending low budget money or something rather than American Pie.
The specific title of the script was Untitled Teen Sex Comedy that you can make for under $10 million that most readers will hate, but I think you'll love.
Okay, it's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
But that was because it was a spec script. So I think that was Adam Herz's way of getting it through the system because in order to be a studio film, you got to pass through the readers.
Right.
They have to rate it well. So he wanted to just like give them a one-liner and like get them to react right away. So the first scene in the script wasn't the one that we know in the movie. It was Kevin and Vicky, and Vicky was instructing Kevin on which way to move his fingers.
Right.
I'll let you put together the visual on that one. Yeah. And I was like, what the hell is this? I was 17. I was like, this is a porn. So I set the script aside. I called my agent. I was like, no, I'm not interested.
Right.
Like, why are you sending me, smut?
Okay. And then how did that do a U-turn?
Then they offered it to my friend Andrew Keegan, who I went to high school with, but Andrew couldn't do the film because he was already booked on 10 Things I Hate About You with Heath Ledger.
Right.
So then they came back to me. This is what I mean about when something's like meant to be yours. I said no, and it came back again. And they're like, will you give it another try? So I read the whole script and I was like, oh, there's more to this story. There's heart to it. There's well-rounded characters. There's, some meaning and layers to it. And then I auditioned, and then the rest is history.
Was he the one that was the best, that played the best friend in 10 Things I Hate About You? Who did he play in?
Gosh, I haven't seen the film in a long time.
Because I used to get you mixed up sometimes in my head with another actor, and I think it might be the same.
Oh, for sure, it was him. We always used to audition for the same things all the time.
That's
and it was I was always second fiddle to Andrew Keegan. Like on the teen magazines, he'd be on the cover, and I'd be like on page 5. Never quite matching up to the teen heartthrob of Andrew Keegan. I could just imagine if he did both films. God, I would just be nowhere, and he would just be the king of the 90s.
I don't know about that. So you get the part, you arrive on set, and you've got this crazy cast and insane. Tell me about the sets. I suppose you're at lake houses, you're at high school, you're at football games and stuff like that. Was it on location, or was it most of it in the studio?
We were a small budget film, so making a studio film for under $10 million is a very, very tiny budget in comparison to, studio film size budgets. So we were in actual locations.
Right.
There was a couple of times where they built some soundstage stuff for the interiors. Like we went to
house party or something.
Yeah, like Stiffler's house party was at an actual house for the front entrance and the main room. But then when we went up to the bedrooms, that was on a soundstage.
Right. Okay. Because I was thinking, I've been involved in some productions before, and it's kind of weird to me. On location, when you look back at it, there's great memories, there's good fun, you're all together. But actually, when you're filming it, sometimes it's more uncomfortable. There's not as much room. There's no,
It was warm because it was the summertime.
Yeah, no aircon. There's no room for a makeup tent or something different.
Well, you got to turn the aircon off when you're filming the scene, so it definitely gets a little humid. And then also the idea that if you notice cinematically, the first film versus the later films, there's not a lot of wide shots,
right?
Because they were constantly having to just be inside of the palm trees. Because we were shooting in Los Angeles, in Altadena, which is like Pasadena, Altadena, about 20, 30 minutes west of or east of LA. And I went the wrong direction there for a second. East of LA, you're like, it doesn't matter. And so we're supposed to be in Michigan. There's no palm trees in, Grand Rapids, Michigan. So yeah,
crazy.
It's a different sort of a film to where then later on the American Reunion, we were shooting in Atlanta, no palm trees, wider shots.
So, and what about the cast? I feel like on screen, you guys have so much chemistry, or get like work so well together. When you guys were off screen, was it the same thing? It was camaraderie. Like, did you get along well with everyone? And what was the vibe like?
It is a good group of people, and I think similar to how in the film we are all so different. We all kind of represent a different clique of high school.
Yeah.
When we're all together, there's that same kind of energy, and we are all very different. But yes, we all get along, and we would spend more time hanging out off set as we did more of the films, especially when we started going on location.
I was thinking to see you guys show up at a real bar, the whole cast, or even a few of the cast. That would be an experience.
That happened during American Reunion. You can read about the story in TMZ. It was Eddie K, Thomas, Jason Biggs, and myself. And when the three of us goes somewhere, you can rest assured we're not getting to like fly under the radar when you see like the cast of the film walk into a spot. So you're not supposed to have cameras in these types of establishments, but they all seemed to use their phones to film us there.
Yeah, I feel like it would be good fun to play, even just like hanging out with you down, we were having a coffee earlier. I feel like you could play pranks on people. It would be pretty good fun. But what about, was there any disagreements? Is there any sort of juicy goss or stories about the cast? Like, did you get along with any cast members in particular better than others?
I don't know. There was definitely no drama. I mean, everyone was and is a professional actor.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, as far as like who I get along with more, I probably see Tara Reid more often nowadays. I'm doing a lot of like Comic-Con events with some of the cast. More have started joining us, but I mean, I've done them for years with Tara.
Yeah.
And she's a sweetheart. She's like, if I'm doing a Comic-Con and then playing a concert after with my band, she'll always come and support the show. Whereas I can't say the same for Chris Klein and Eddie K. Thomas at a recent event, because they were like, oh, what time you play? I'm like, 10 p.m. They're like, that's past my bedtime. I'm like, how fucking old are you?
Oh, God. Well, that's good. I was going to say, you played Tara Reid's love interest. She was a dead set stunner. She still is. She's amazing. Was there any romance at all throughout, not only you, but any of the cast? Anything going on?
There was never romance in the cast of American Pie. Like, nobody hooked up with anybody. I think the first time there was ever a hookup was not from the main cast, but if you remember American Reunion, the girl that Jason Biggs' character Jim babysat.
Yeah, the next door neighbor.
The next door neighbor, with the amazing scene in the car. Her and the character that played her boyfriend that we messed up his jet skis and all that stuff because he splashed us.
Right.
They actually dated for a little bit afterwards, but then that didn't last very long.
Well, finally, one of the cast finally got together. So good on them, really. And what about Sean William Scott in particular? Is he anything like Stiffler?
Sean William Scott is the exact opposite of Stiffler in real life.
That is nuts. It's hard to imagine.
It is hard to imagine, especially because he is so damn good in that role.
Yeah.
And just like it comes so naturally. And then, but outside of it, he's the most sickeningly polite person and just, just like supportive and like, please and thank you. And you're like, stop saying please and thank you.
And I feel like he gets cast, in a lot of those kind of, maybe not all like Stiffler, but larger than life, kind of out there characters. I've been told before that I look a bit like Stiffler, so I'm not sure about that one. But and what about the rest of the cast? Any of them that are just polar opposite to their character, or mostly pretty close?
I mean, obviously, Shannon Elizabeth is not a Czechoslovakian exchange student. So I would say she's polar opposite.
Yeah. Okay.
I think there are similarities, I think, for all the rest of the cast. I think probably the most similar to his character, and maybe he would deny this, but whatever, is Chris Klein.
Right.
I get that vibe. Yeah, he was a jock.
And especially after because he's a family man in the show and he can't stay up late enough to go to your concert, so it kind of adds up.
Exactly.
Did you realize that you were in the moment in such an iconic, something that would become a classic? Was it that? Did you realize how big it would sort of get? Did you have a feeling or an inkling?
Yeah, I was in my contract. I said I would only do the film if it became a cult classic and $1 billion franchise and 4 films, maybe 5. Yeah, we negotiated for a very long time about those points.
But you must have known, starting to film that this is something special.
I think that it's exciting anytime that I do a studio film.
Right.
They're much larger than life on set. You have, just so many more crew members, so many more trucks and trailers and equipment. So it's a big production.
Right.
And I say this because I produce a lot of independent films. We avoid a lot of the expenses by not being such a big footprint. So that part of it was always exciting. I had no idea that it would,
live on. Yeah,
like here I am 25 years later, and because of the success of this $1 billion franchise, I'm touring Australia.
Yeah.
It just keeps generating opportunities for me that I'm so grateful for. There was a moment for me that identified that, though, that it was a success. And still, I didn't know we were going to do sequels. But that was when we were shooting the movie. J.B. Rogers was our first assistant director, and he worked for the Farrelly brothers.
Okay.
So he had done like, Dumb and Dumber and Something About Mary. So Something About Mary was in theaters while we were filming. And when that hit $100 million in the box office, they sent him like a congratulations cake.
Yeah.
Like we were at lunch one day and like this cake came from the Farrelly brothers. And in my mind, I was like, oh,
wow. Yeah.
$100 million in the box office. Oh, that must be like this big monumental moment for a comedy
kind of thing.
Yeah, because Rookie of the Year did like 50 million, and I was like, wow, that's a lot. So I was like, oh, now it's late 90s. That's the new milestone. So when American Pie hit $100 million in the box office, that was the moment that I was like, oh, we've achieved something that probably no one ever thought we could.
Well, it has lived on, and I feel like being born from that is so many different iconic scenes, lines. I mean, you've got the apple pie scene, you've got like the whole MILF, like all sorts of things. When I picture your role in the movie, to me, maybe what jumped out was you jumping up on top of the couch, running this iconic line. Do you get people, asking you to say certain lines or anything like that?
The number one line for my character that I write on most of my autographs is a line from the end of the film that happens in all of the films, and that is "to the next step." So
to the next step, eh?
To the next step.
Okay. Yeah, and your line, I imagine some of these lines are so ingrained in your memory. If I was to say to you, you don't have to do this in a theatrical way, we must make a stand right here, right now, would you know how to finish it?
No longer will our penises remain flaccid and unused.
Well,
there's a reason for this, though. I don't just know every line, but that is Kevin's iconic speech from the first film. And I have been known to perform that on stage as an introduction to my band or a DJ set from time to time.
Right,
and
so
the reaction to it is palpable.
Okay, I can imagine.
Like, it's one of those
moments.
moments.
What to expect.
Yeah, like one of those moments, like if I come out like, oh, we're welcoming, Thomas and Nicholas to the stage.
Snooze fest.
Yay.
Yeah.
If I come out and I deliver that whole speech, the phones come out, and everyone's just like having just a hit of nostalgia.
That's so cool. I am, again, being involved in media production, I'm sort of fascinated by the kind of quirks that ends up happening behind the scenes when you put scenes together. I was wondering if there's any strange anomalies that as viewers we might not notice. So I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a scene where you guys have walkie-talkies. I think it's you and Oz are on a ladder.
We're in American Pie 2.
Yeah. And the rest of the boys are upstairs. Sometimes you might film a scene where you're actually on 2 different days, or you're in 2 different rooms, or in 2 different sets. Is there anything come to mind that's a bit of a weird, it looks like it was filmed that way, but we actually maybe you didn't even meet one of the actresses or one of the actors, or?
I met the actors for that, but yes, the shots of Chris Klein and myself at the top of the ladder peeking in on what was happening, we were looking at nothing. There was like a C-stand with a piece of tape on it and an X.
Were they there earlier that day at least or something? Like, was it the scene beforehand?
No, because I'm pretty sure they would have shot that on a soundstage, maybe.
It's funny because I just came up with that just like randomly, but that's actually one of those scenes.
Yeah, I think
so. I assume it happens a lot.
It does happen a lot. I mean, well, here's a prime example. I didn't meet Casey Affleck, who played my brother in the first film, until the premiere. And he was there with his other brother, Ben.
Yeah.
You know that guy.
I've heard of him.
And Matt. So the other, Ben's other friend.
And when you were when we were
just Casey, Ben, and Matt,
small fry
just the boys
in the industry. Yeah. So were you actually talking to him on the phone, or was it completely just separate text?
That was me and the script supervisor.
Right.
Like that scene. And I'm the same in reverse. I think it was, just Casey talking to the script soup.
Well,
and we didn't meet until the premiere, and we're in a movie together.
It's funny. I was just thinking that surely, because you have your own kind of little side stories, I guess, in American Pie. Everyone's got their own love interest. Everyone's doing their own thing, as well as like a group story. So I suspected there would be some sort of story like that, which is, I don't know, fascinates me for whatever reason it is.
Well, that happens a lot. I mean, not to dip away from American Pie, and I know that Rookie of the Year isn't as well known here, though it does seem like there's a little surge of it that people are aware of it more than in
Cult
Europe.
classic, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a, American baseball film, but it's beyond that. But John Candy is in that movie.
Yeah. There's a few.
He's not that role is not even in the script.
Right.
So they shot his stuff 3 months later, and most of his stuff is all improv.
Right.
And he's uncredited in the film.
Because I was gonna say John Candy, like, how did you go? That must have been amazing to meet him, but not
I met him
okay.
after the movie came out. We did a
Right.
PSA together.
Okay, yeah, I've met him. There's a few great actors in that movie. Like, it's the cast is amazing. My favorite band of all time, Blink-182, features in the movie. I don't imagine they were on set.
No, they didn't come to set. They filmed on the last day of production. My character had already wrapped,
Right.
but I had just finished my first album, and I was attempting to get a song on the soundtrack.
Right.
So I specifically came to set that day just to meet them.
Right.
Because one of the executives had put a copy of Dude Ranch in all of our our dressing rooms, and with a note saying Blink-182 is going to come do a cameo in the film, and we're going to shoot this music video, which they never used the footage for a music video. But they're going to be the next Green Day.
Right.
And that was the note from the executive. So I was like, of course I want to.
So you had not heard of them at that point? That's until you got the Dude Ranch?
Yeah, I mean, I personally hadn't because, I at the time I was, 18 and, Enema of the State was their big record, which came out around the release of the film.
Yeah.
And with Mutt, but I think the version that we have in the movie is not with Travis playing. Or did Enema of the State release one with Travis playing drums? Did they re-record it?
I think they re-recorded it.
Right.
And that's a weird thing that I noticed I'm not sure if you've noticed
they
it.
Miscredited him.
They've got Scott Rayner in the credits instead of Travis. So it must have been right.
Well, because it was around that switch time, because obviously they were, coming up. But yeah, it was one of those things where, no, I hadn't heard of them. Right. But obviously when I was 14, 4 years earlier, I was already, listened to Dookie, 150 times and learned how to play some of the songs. And so I came to set. I've stayed in touch with Mark off and on over the years.
Oh, so cool.
I probably haven't talked to him for about 8 years or so. We ran into each other about 10 years ago. I was supposed to go and chill with him at his house in Glastonbury. I was playing the Glastonbury Music Festival, and the Foo Fighters were headlining. So he had invited me over to hang out with Dave Grohl and the TM, and then Dave had to go break his leg. Selfish bastard.
I've had my own thing. I took a friend of mine met Mark backstage, got a photo with him. Then it was my turn to get a photo with him. He started talking to someone else, and in the end, Mark drove off, and I never got my selfie with him, which is, a regret. But I'll tell you what, that movie, I think with the soundtrack, it's such a great mix for that era. And I don't know whose idea it was to put Mutt in that scene where Jim's running across, sprinting over to see the streaming footage. And once that kicks in with that gives me chills.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely amazing. For someone like you who lives and breathes that kind of music, I don't know, it seems like the perfect kind of role and movie for that era and also for you.
I think it's what's funny to me is that only on my recent album, my 7th album that just released last year, did I really delve into the pop punk sound. I dipped my toe in the water in 2012 with an EP with the bass player from Puddle of Mud.
Right.
And that's the one that I have, My Generation. It's on the soundtrack of American Reunion. Because, it only took me 4 movies to get a song on the soundtrack.
Well, I noticed that your band, the genre is maybe not as fixed as you might kind of come to expect from most bands these days. It's a bit more fluid.
Well, I've kind of, discovered myself along the way. It started out because I was into, that grunge rock in the beginning. My first
Nirvana,
couple of albums, are all alternative.
Yeah.
And then I went more eclectic, and then I went indie, and then I went a little heavier, and now I'm more pop punk, I think.
Yeah, all right.
To a degree. Some would argue that some of the songs are not, full on pop punk on the newest album, but whatever. I think an album full of 10 songs that sound exactly the same is pretty boring. So
no, I agreed. I'll circle around back to that a bit later. I want to ask you, with the media landscape the way it is today, could you create American Pie in 2025?
With the media landscape, or you think just with the
cancel culture, people's maybe potentially people are a little bit more offended or touchy these days? Social media, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, my opinion is that we couldn't make the movie then, so we couldn't make the movie now, but we did make the movie then, so I think we could make the movie now, if that makes any sense. People sort of forget that we were just as uptight then as we are now. Maybe there's more repercussions of it now,
Right.
but it is still just a film.
Yeah, you were pushing the boundaries even back then.
We were
and pushing
definitely
the envelope.
pushing the boundaries.
Yeah. Maybe the only difference is now Twitter or X is out there, and people, the small minorities who are offended, maybe can
But
get their voice
it's the
heard.
type of thing that, we were slapped with an NC-17 rating
Right.
when we finished the first movie, and they spent weeks recutting the film. That's why they
So
had
it's
two
too high.
versions.
I'm not sure we have that rating system over here. It's not MA 15 plus. It's like more like a R. We have MA 15 plus and then R, I think, after that. So
Right.
it was too adult to be.
Yeah, NC-17 is what porn is rated as
Right,
in the
right.
States.
Okay.
So like they were basically saying like this can't be in theaters. So if we got an NC-17, it wouldn't have been released as a theatrical movie. It would just go into like adult video stores, I guess.
Right.
So they
It's
were
a bit
fighting
nuts,
for
isn't it?
that, and you want to talk about like minute things. So that's why we have the rated and unrated version.
Yep.
Is because of all the things that they cut out of it.
Right.
So but they still didn't change some of them back. Like my character after Stiffler drinks the beer.
Oh, yeah, the special beer.
Yeah, the special beer.
Foam.
I went and said to Stiffler, "Hey Stiffler, how's the man chowder?" And that line was still giving us an NC-17 rating. So you want to talk about like sensitivity,
Okay.
that's just words. There's no difference in the scene. So I had to change it to, "Hey Stifler, how's the pale ale?"
God. Okay. It's crazy. I must say I reckon I've thrown up, on dates a couple of times. Maybe we should put on American Pie. To me, it ticks all the boxes. It's funny. It's got a storyline. It's kind of easy watching. If you come in halfway through, you're still going to get it. And I've had a few comments a bit like, "Oh, isn't that, maybe the younger audience, isn't that super offensive movie?" That's like, and I sort of think it should be a litmus test. If someone can't sort of sit through American Pie without being so offended that they have to turn it off, then maybe you're not wifey material.
But again, it's this idea that it's a movie that exists in its own like entertainment box,
Yeah.
right? It's not like a movie affects society
No.
or,
If you wanna
designates
watch
or
it.
like affects you, like you watch it and then suddenly you're crass.
Yeah. If you don't want to watch it, then just steer away from it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's something for everyone and not everything's for everyone. So
Okay. You can do it in 2025, I think. And
I think so. I mean, they were, circling around the idea. Universal
Yeah.
was negotiating with the creator to do American Pie 5 in 2021.
Right.
And 2021 is still post cancel culture.
Right.
So
But it fell down.
it didn't come together on the negotiation.
There's
But
still time.
that to me says the silver lining is that Universal thinks we can make it.
Then
And
you
they just
can.
need to come back to the table and
Okay.
figure out their differences for negotiation.
So my opinion is that American Pie is the ultimate coming of age high school teenage movie. Since then, there's been a lot of copycats, a whole bunch of other movies and series, and I think there's a new generation of it, like through Netflix and everything. Do you have an opinion on like the kind of more recent coming of age movies? Do you kind of watch it and go, do you think it's changed or?
Well, there's a darker flavor that's kind of in some of the current coming of age,
Yeah.
broad
sort of thing.
comedies. Like there was a recent one.
Euphoria is sort of one that.
Well, that's way dark though.
Yeah.
Like that. Like, oh, so we could make Euphoria, but we can't make American
Yeah,
Pie?
that's
Like,
true.
give me a break.
That's true.
Like, so that one's not offensive.
Apparently.
Right. If I have to see any more penises, no thank you. It was
That's
bad
a
enough
good
we saw
point.
Jason Biggs' penis like through some glass in American Reunion, but like I lost count of the number of penises that I had to see in Euphoria.
It's a good point. I think the reason why, let's say American Pie and In-Betweeners, I'd like sort of put in the same boat, few of those sort of back then, it was based around heroing the underdog, the outcast group. And I think that's my problem with the Netflix, the really polished. It feels like the main character is always a jock. They can get any girl they want, they're chiseled. full charisma or whatever. And I'm kind of like, what am I watching this movie for? Like,
Right.
where is the story arc? To me, that's personally my problem whenever there's a new like teenage coming of age movie that shows up on one of the streaming services.
Well,
I miss the old.
there was that recent one that just came out, like, was it Snack Shack or what?
I haven't seen it.
There's something there that's kind of like that coming of age summer sort of thing, and they're not like the popular kids.
Okay.
But then the film takes a dark turn near the end, like this tragedy happens, and
God.
like you're like,
Gotta
I'm
push the
like, we
boundaries
were
as
not
a-
crying
yeah.
watching any of the American Pie movies.
No,
It's entertainment. It's light.
and
It's
to be
meant to be
fair,
fun.
they kind of come full circle. Everyone learns a lesson.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
There's
so-
still a bit of a lesson, but yeah, there's a dark flavor that kind of exists in today's comedies. Something that's just a little like
off or
yeah, just like I said, like a little too dramatic, I think.
fair enough. So unless you've had your head in sand, there's a controversy at the moment going on. Blake Lively has been involved in all sorts of drama with her movie, which is It Ends With Us. She has apparently been wanting to make her own changes to her cuts, to the music. I was wondering, what's your opinion of someone who's worked in Hollywood when an actor gets involved with maybe what would be typically the director's job? Have you seen that happen? Was there any?
I've only read about it happening. There was wasn't there that one movie, 3,000 Miles to Graceland, with Kurt Russell and Kevin Costner, and they were both like fighting over. Maybe it's not the two of them. Maybe it's two different actors, but they were like fighting over. They each had their own cuts of the movie.
Right.
But this is like
way back, so it's been around
30
for a
years.
while.
Yeah, of course.
I don't imagine the American Pie, which seeing as you guys were 18.
No, I mean,
no one's pushing their weight around.
There was no weight to push.
Yeah.
we were all newbies. No one had that kind of power negotiated into their contract.
Blake Lively has insisted there should be an intimacy coordinator in her scenes when they're dancing or kissing and that kind of thing. You were involved in shooting American Pie with sex scenes with Tara Reid, naked or partially naked in the bedroom. Did you guys have an intimacy coordinator? How did you navigate it?
No, we didn't have an intimacy coordinator. I mean, in her, I guess I'm not involved and I don't know their story, but in her defense, perhaps that's due to the fact that she's married and has kids and wants to really put like,
boundaries
boundary of like, hey, this is a movie. It's not real. And, I'm not like doing anything wrong so that, here's my life and here's my work.
Right.
Because I definitely felt that way at the time that I did American Pie. I had a girlfriend who was like, we were together for like 5 years.
Right.
And when I agreed to do the job and she like kind of like knew what it was, she goes, oh, I could never watch this. So I definitely made a valiant effort to say, look, that's work. It's, not my life. Like I'm still
separation.
Yeah, exactly. To separate, the separation of church and state.
Okay. And did she stick by that? She never watched the movie?
Mean, she broke up with me shortly, like before the film even came out. So it was a worthless effort on my part.
What? Okay. That is bizarre.
Yeah.
And yeah, so all right. So you've been in the industry longer. I was thinking that maybe you'd be like, oh, that's a bit precious. Come on. Like we got through it back in the day. So, but
well, there's a thing that kind of happens in those scenes. I mean, when we did those scenes in the movie, they do what's called like they only have essential personnel, and it'll say it on the call sheet. Hey, we're shooting the scene. There's going to be some nudity or intimacy, so we're going to duck the crew down to essential personnel only. No visitors on those days. And obviously, so, a lot of people are like, oh, did you watch Jason Biggs and the Pie? Well, no, because, you
were out of the room at that
we were
point.
not in the scene, so we weren't really allowed to like go and gawk. And man, how hard would that have been for Jason? Like if we were like snickering on the side, because that's definitely what we would have been doing.
Right, that makes sense. And how do you make sure that, if you're hanging out with a very attractive Tara Reid in those scenes, might accidentally become more real than you intended it to be in a scene like that? Is there bodysuits going on under the blankets?
We would like show up on set like in our robes, and we had, flesh colored underwear and coverings on. And so then
it's not accidentally getting too real, when someone's looking sexy like Tara Reid, and then
I mean, I think there is a possibility for it to happen that way, But,
Everyone's
remember
professional anyway.
you've got a camera and they're like,
You're trying to
okay, roll sound, sound speed, scene 27, like that takes all the
yeah, okay.
sort of realness out of it in that moment.
Yeah, you
But
gotta be
you still
strict.
want to make sure that it's portrayed as real so
Mm,
that you're respecting the character's journey so that it's, you know, in the movie the right way.
alrighty. Awesome. I was thinking about the sequels, right? I would have thought if someone had have told me after the original American Pie that there's gonna be 3 sequels, correct? From the original. I just can't believe how well they've been put together. They kind of all stand on their own, in my opinion. Like, and how is the experience of shooting them? Were they more? Did they get more fun over time? Like, was it great to go back and reconnect with the old cast? And I don't know, what was the experience between the original compared to the sequels?
Well, as far as our personal experience, they became more fun
Yeah.
for us personally. And we were always excited to get back together
Mm,
and hang out. And then, as I mentioned before, as we started going on location, we started hanging out more on the weekends and
yeah.
getting into trouble and all that sort of stuff. As far as the film itself, there was a different kind of pressure that existed
Right.
once we'd been successful. You don't want to like fall short on the
Yeah.
sequel. And then there was other things that were, and this is, people say there's sensitivity now.
Mhm.
We got stuff pulled from the second movie from the studio. They're like, oh no, you can't make that joke. That's offensive.
Right.
And because now more people are looking in your direction. So
Yeah.
we
No
had
one was.
more responsibility.
Yeah, okay. Well, at least everyone's taking it seriously and, wanted to do the best they possibly could, and it wasn't just some sort of money grab or cash grab.
I mean, I think it's both, but yeah.
I've asked you so much now about American Pie. It's kind of got like that out of my system. I wanted to touch on marketing, branding, the promotion of different releases, whether that be music or movies. You must have seen the landscape change since the 90s. What are your I think seems like it used to be sort of Entertainment Tonight or bust, and nowadays there's so many more tools at your disposal. Is that for better or worse? Social media, everything.
I mean, I think it's an equal opportunity for everyone now that it used to be if you wanted to pursue a career in any facet of entertainment that you were, you didn't know what to do or how to start or if you could be part of the club. And
Mm,
now you can just do it. I mean, we have, devices in our pockets, our phones that can film or record any kind of content.
mm,
And then you can post it up on any social media, and if people latch on to it,
works.
you've got your shot. Or even if they don't latch onto it, you can still do what you love.
And that doesn't frustrate you a little bit because someone who, maybe started with third parties sort of doing the promotion for you, and now it's on you to sort of be creative and come up with your own content. It's
I
not.
mean, I'm a big believer that, it does take years to hone your craft in any way, shape, or form, whether it's playing music or acting. There's technique, there's time, there's, muscle memory, there's
Mm,
experience and all that stuff. And you can't really replace that.
mm,
Um, so I think that it doesn't frustrate me in the sense that if someone does all those things and then goes that other avenue, kudos to them. If they don't do all those things and they get their moment, then unfortunately they probably won't stay there for very long.
yeah.
Because, you know,
You've got to keep up with all creative content and sort of
well, it just
market yourself and
if something or someone is more vapid, then that will sort of dissipate
yeah, yeah.
faster than having the basis of it because the studios tried this where they started hiring influencers
Right.
to star in films, and once you took that person out of their 15-second or 60-second sort of highlighted moment and put them in a long form narrative, it
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 worked.
lost all of its value
Yeah,
because you sort of stretched that truncated thing out and then it wasn't as interesting because they didn't have all of those things. So
yeah.
I'm not really worried about it or offended by it, but I do think that it's great that people can
Can do that.
pursue their desires, their dreams without having to feel like, oh, I'll never have a chance.
Yeah. Well, you've used TikTok and YouTube and, like, to great effect. Am I right in saying so it seems like you did a bit of a collaboration with, Bowling for Soup, and that to me is like an excellent idea of a piece of creative content that's put out there. So how did that work? You kinda got permission to put your own lyrics to their song?
So, okay. So this actually all started because of one of Jarrett's many podcasts.
Uh-huh.
So I got offered to do this is the whole story. And this is how we almost didn't become friends. I got offered to do Jarrett Goes to the Movies. They wanted to watch American Pie
Yeah.
and chat about it. And, you know, obviously Bowling for Soup had Bowling for Soup Goes to the Movies album. So this is a play off of that. So at the time that they offered me that, it was one of his team. I was doing the promotion for Lionsgate for my film Adverse, which is a very dark, dramatic film going head to head with Mickey Rourke. So I said to the team member, to Sean, who did not relay my message, but my message was, hey, I'm in the midst of doing the promotion for Lionsgate, so I can't do this nostalgia American Pie thing now. But when I'm done with that, I'll come back and do it later. That would be amazing. So all he told Jarrett was he doesn't want to talk about American Pie. So then Jarrett's like, what an asshole. So he went and did the podcast anyway and called me an asshole during the podcast, even though for years everyone had said to one of us, like, we would get along if we ever met.
Right.
So I finished up the promotion for that film. It went out in theaters, well received by critics, you know, small independent platform theatrical release. Cool. I'm doing a tour in Texas. I get offered to this venue to go do a live podcast watching American Pie. And the owner says, one of my friends has a podcast that does this, and I want to team you guys up. Turns out it was Jarrett, because Jarrett lives in Dallas, Texas. So then Jarrett hears that I'm going to do this. He goes, what the fuck? He doesn't want to talk about American Pie. That's not going to happen. So we get on the phone. We hit it off immediately. I go do Rockstar Dad Show because I'm also a dad with kids. And, you know, we just immediately become like besties.
Right.
Like we just can't stop texting each other and like calling, talking on the phone. So we go and do the event. And I had said I wanted to play an acoustic show afterwards. So I was like, when am I going to get a chance to like jam with Jarrett from Bowling for Soup?
Yeah.
So we finished the movie. We get on stage. Jarrett starts 1985. In the second verse, he goes, you know, we should sing lyrics about American Pie. So we start trying to like vamp it on the fly and failed miserably.
Okay.
You know, that song's pretty like fast.
I thought you were going to say you come out with that on stage or something, and I was thinking that's insane.
No, we like,
right, yeah.
I think it ended with something. The only lines I remember saying is I shouted out, Finch couldn't get his Vespa started. And then I think Amy from the podcast, like Jarrett's friend, like, and then somebody farted. And like, that was like the end. We started like laughing. The next day I woke up, started like typing up dummy lyrics, sent it to Jarrett. He goes, oh, that'd be a funny TikTok.
Yeah.
Few months later, I'm opening for him and Rob, the bass player, for an acoustic show in Baltimore. We randomly were in the same city at the same time. So he let me jump on as a last minute surprise opener. So I recorded my version of it in my hotel room before the show because I was so like jazzed about going to open for them. It got 500,000 views. So Jared goes, come to Texas.
Do a proper version.
Yeah, let's like hash through these lyrics. So we worked on it together, and then I recorded it with Bowling for Soup.
Oh, that's so cool.
So that's how 1999 came into fruition, and how Jared and I almost didn't become best friends.
Well, there you go. That is as creative as it gets. So good work on that. I was thinking, someone who has, especially male performers that have made it through Hollywood and the music industry, I think it's very rare. One person that comes to mind is Jared Leto. He's probably the GOAT in that industry, but
I mean, he's the only actor turned musician that's successful as a musician.
Isn't that, it's crazy. And I used to play in a band, so I know the dedication that it takes to be doing it. So I think it's admirable that you've been able to navigate both and be successful in both. I was wondering, how do you find the difference between like the Hollywood types and the musician types? Are they similar or are they different?
I would say that, like, you know, musicians have been their own crew at one point in their life, whereas, you know, they've carried in a bass amp up a flight of stairs.
More grounded than.
Yeah, more grounded. Whereas an actor hasn't necessarily ever done that. I mean, not always, but I'm saying for the most part, they've never been a crew. They've just
Mm.
been catered to.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Shows eventually with the kinds of personalities, or do they end up?
I mean, and every musician, I would say at one point or another has performed to a nearly empty room,
Yep,
and
yep.
that's pretty humbling. Whereas,
Your
like
feet touch the
yeah,
ground.
you could have an actor could be in a film that's a flop, but then
They
they
don't see
always
it.
blame the director,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's a little bit you're a bit disconnected when you release something, a couple of months later and, the
Yeah,
numbers some numbers on a spreadsheet or something like that.
for sure.
Well, look, mate, that's it from me. If anyone wants to check out your music, it's Thomas Nicholas Band. You can find it on Spotify. A quick shout out to my main man, Brad Smith, who helped set this up. You're a legend, Tom. So it was like a bit surreal to sit down with you. And they say don't meet your heroes, but to be honest, you've surpassed it, my expectations, mate.
Oh,
So
dude, I appreciate that so much,
cheers,
dude.
dude.
Thank
It's
you,
been it's
Key.
been quite a pleasure.
Yeah,
It's been
same,
it's
same.
good times. All right,
All
that's a
right,
wrap,
well, we're
man.
gonna turn the cameras off and we'll have our way with
Until
this
next time.
pie.
Yeah, that's your gift.